folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Hey folks, welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa and the Rugby Ascendant segment at a special time on a Friday. It's a Lekker Vrijdag. Welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to have you. Whether you are here in North America or you find yourself on the other side of the Atlantic in Southern Africa, maybe you're out in New Zealand. I don't know what you're doing out there with Horseface just in the air, but have fun out there in Australia. Have a blast. Those in Europe and even our friends up there in Canada, welcome to the stream. It's a pleasure to have people join us today. Listen, I was approached by one of my viewers a few weeks ago and they said, hey, there's this oak that's in Texas, and I don't know why, but this guy's a big Springboks fan. You should get him on. Well, my curiosity was piqued. I went to his channel. Dude's got about 600 subscribers, and he had a video that just blew up like 20,000+ views about Rossi Erasmus. And I was like, wait a second. I did a video on Rossi. Mine only got 3,000 views. What's the secret sauce? How's he doing it? Well, that got me curious. Well, folks, today we have the fair weather rugby fan, XXX. I'm not really sure why that. We're going to find out about that. Find a little bit about how he became a Springboks fan as an American. Many of you who watched my channel for a long time know my story and why I'm a fan. But let's get into it right now. Hey, Keith, how you doing today?
How's it, Mr. Wyatt? Just here in Texas, man. It's already hot, and it's 9:30 in the morning. So,
well, we're going to do a little test here for the viewers because it's already slipped out for those who are very, very astute with the ear. Tell us about your life in Canada.
So born in Brampton, Ontario, and to a Italian mom and Afrikaner dad. Grew up. Anybody that's ever been to Brampton knows what it's called. It's Bangladesh. It's Brown Town. So most of my neighbors were South Asian, mostly Gujarati and Punjabis, a lot of Sikhs, and just a good blue collar. You know, my parents were immigrants, and told me that you work. That's how you get through life. You work. So just a normal upbringing, man. Nothing too fancy. Just that's about it, man. Nothing too fancy.
See, it slipped out there. It's about you. It's telling us all about it. You can always detect Canadian. I tell you what, when the terrorists line us all up and they're trying to find who we are, I always pretend to be a Canadian, and it's easy. I just speak French poorly and pretend I'm an Anglophone Canadian, and I say a boot all the time, and I talk all about hockey, and then they just leave me alone. It works really well.
Yeah.
But people are asking why did I have the stream at this unusual hour? Well, that's because you work for a living, unlike a lot of people these days. I'm glad to see you're working for a living. But hey, so we have a little bit of the story here. So your dad's South African, your mom is Italian. I'm sure that was an interesting mix growing up. But you were born and grew up in Canada, and then at some point came to the States. And if I understand correctly, you're an American citizen now.
Yeah. I've been a U.S. citizen for a bit here now, and got no regrets. I love this country. It's it's easy to get online to kind of bash things about it here, but the reality is that I work a very blue collar life here. I have a brand new car. My kid has nice shoes. You can work in this country hard and see the results a lot quicker here than you can in a lot of other places, unfortunately. But I got no regrets. I'm all about the USA Eagles and just being a good American. It's for better or worse, it's still, in my opinion, the greatest place. So,
well, I can't dispute that. Of course, I'm very biased, having been born here and my family arriving here in 1621. So I've got quite a long history, longer than most South Africans have in South Africa. I have here in the United States with my ancestors coming here. So I can't disagree with you. Of course, I spent 36 and a half years in uniform, wearing the uniform to support and defend the Constitution, just for that very reason. So I think we're very much like what's I don't know the phrase, but we're very much in good company there. So let's get this thing. Okay, so you grew up in Canada. Rugby's big up there in some respects, particularly at the club level. It's well known and it's growing. We've got Major League Rugby with the Toronto Arrows, who would become very popular up there. Although they spent this season in Atlanta, that was a tough one for them because of the Rona. But growing up in Canada, rugby, I mean, was it something you grew up with, or did you latch onto it later in life?
No. To be completely honest with you, and I've mentioned it in other videos, I'm actually a massive ice hockey fan. I'm a huge Colorado Avalanche fan. Remember when they were in Quebec?
Yes, the Nordiques.
Joe Sakic, all those guys, Peter Forsberg. Way back. Yeah, I mean, it's so I'm actually a bigger ice hockey fan than I am even a rugby fan. I actually it's kind of like a lot of other things. I prefer to follow the junior and minor league level ice hockey over the NHL, just because I feel like I'm a working man just like everyone else, man. I can't afford Dallas Stars season tickets.
Oh, good Lord, you know.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, I'd rather, even with American football, I prefer the collegiate level over the NFL, just because those guys just are hungrier at that collegiate level. And so, yeah, I obviously grew up, hockey was my sport. I played it. That was my big thing. And obviously we talked about, I also played cricket for a bit, not too keen on it, but yeah, it was just always kind of one of those things at the side that it was like, hey, this is your heritage. This is your national sport. And it just took a while before I was able to really, the inventation of the internet and the DSL connection helped a lot. So I was able to follow the sport a lot closer after that point. So,
well, are you, yeah. You mentioned the lower tier leagues. Are you, I would presume, an American Hockey League fan?
ECHL, AHL, yeah.
Okay.
And then even minor junior, like the NALD, NAHL, the USHL, the NA3HL.
Wow, you're seriously into it.
Yeah.
What about the Quebec Hockey League? You follow that as well?
I'm more of an OHL guy, not the Quebec Major Junior, but OHL is more my OHL and WHL. But yes, I do remember for years there, like Charlottetown doing real well, and Quebec and all those teams. But it was just a little harder to follow that because I didn't speak French. So.
See, you would have been on the flight with me, also pretending to be Canadian. No, but seriously, so you'd be like a pig in slop up here, brother. Let me tell you, I live within 30 minutes of the Hershey Bears. And I live within 2 hours of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. I live within an hour and a half of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. And I live within about 45 minutes of the Reading Royals for the ECHL. All those games I can go to in short order. And when they have occasionally free tickets for veterans that people donate, I can get a ticket to the Flyers or I've never got one for the Capitals. Nobody ever donates those, but for the Flyers occasionally. And when I stand on a street corner and make extra money selling my services, and no, not that kind. Get your mind out of the gutter, people. Consulting services on the street corner. Consulting services. I can manage to get to Pittsburgh in about 4 hours. So I've been to games because I worked at the War College and we'd go up to New York. I've been to Madison Square Garden to watch the Rangers play. Pretty fantastic. I go to New Jersey for the Devils. We managed to get free tickets for that quite frequently because nobody wants to go to the Devils. But when Vegas comes to town, I go up there. And when Chandler Stevenson was traded to Vegas from the Capitals, I'm a huge Chandler Stevenson fan because he was at Hershey. And when he got traded to Vegas, which is my top team, my favorite team, and then come the Blue Jackets and then the Avalanche. All three I root for various reasons. But anyway, when Chandler Stevenson was traded, actually had tickets to the game in New Jersey. I didn't even know that he'd been traded. Got to New Jersey, and I'm like, that's Chandler Stevenson. What's he doing on the ice? And was there for his first game. It was pretty cool. So I've been to Colorado to the Avalanche games. I've also been out to who else have I been to there? Anyway, plenty of Vegas Golden Knights. So that's an unbelievable experience. If you ever get to Vegas, even if you don't like Vegas, you got to go to watch the T-Mobile Center. It's unbelievable experience, amazing. Anyway, but we didn't come to talk about hockey, but that's kind of cool. I'm enjoying that conversation. Are you a Stars fan there since you're in Texas, or do you have another team beyond the Avalanche?
No, I mean they're obviously the local club, so I do follow them a bit. I have my local team here locally was actually a Tier 2 junior team called the Lone Star Brahmas. They play in the North American Hockey League. And I had mentioned in a video, that's how I ended up in New Zealand. Yes, it was a guy that had come through that organization who was a Kiwi who said, hey, you should come to New Zealand sometime. So I ended up there. And that was quite an experience. Eden Park, all that stuff, FMG Waikato, Christchurch, Queenstown. It's a beautiful country.
It is.
And it's absolutely breathtakingly beautiful, and the Kiwis are a very, very nice people. So no regrets. That's kind of how I ended up kind of south of the equator, was weirdly enough because of hockey. So
ice hockey in New Zealand, that's kind of strange. I mean, aren't they busy with sheep herding out there?
or shagging.
Yes. Well, I wasn't going to say that, but I mean, we do know that reputation.
It was always the joke. It was always the joke. Yeah.
Oh no, it definitely is. I mean, I've got lots of sheep from my time in New Zealand, little stuffed animals and such, and have a little fun with them. But yeah, no, it's well, New Zealand is absolutely beautiful. It's a gorgeous place. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get a chance to go to Christchurch because the earthquake happened right before the World Cup, and it was still devastated. And so the games in Christchurch were shifted elsewhere. So the game that I went to was supposed to be in Christchurch, was actually played in Nelson at the very top of the North or the South Island. Yeah. It was a nice pitch and a nice experience and everything. I flew Air New Zealand down, left my rental car up there in Auckland, and then flew down. It was beautiful, but I wanted to go to Christchurch. That's, and then travel around the area down there. But anyway, so I did get to South Island, but barely. It's just across the water from the North Island. But New Zealand's. Have you ever had a chance to go to any World Cups yet?
No, I have not, unfortunately. Just because honestly, it's very costly and expensive. Obviously, this last one in 2019, you had mentioned you had gone. I'm glad my daughter was not present. She would have been very upset with you, as she's much like a lot of kids in this country. She's into Japanese culture real heavily, and she would have wanted to go just to do that. I would have gone for the rugby, obviously. So no, I haven't yet. I know fairly recently here, Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, has said he's interested in trying to get it here. And I mean, when you've got a billionaire trying to back it, hopefully, you know what? Maybe one day, maybe we have it here one day. That would be absolutely awesome. I mean, we saw how well Japan did with theirs. Why not us? Why wouldn't we be able to do the same here? Obviously, we're hosting a FIFA World Cup again here in the next couple of years. And, you can wish, you only hope one day. It'd be nice for us to host one here in the United States. We definitely have the facilities for it. There's no question in that. So. Yeah.
Well, it's coming. USA Rugby, our rugby union, which is not exactly the best run organization, it's gone bankrupt in recent history. But USA Rugby, and more importantly, the people behind Major League Rugby, the clubs, the management, they have been working very hard with World Rugby to get the Rugby World Cup here for 2031 or 2035. I've already predicted the USA could win the Rugby World Cup in 2035 at the rate we're going. I think we can do that. Given the development of Major League Rugby, we just saw Dan Creel is now coming over from the Lions to play for the Seattle Seawolves. That was announced this week. Another major sign.
That's news to me. Oh my God, that's insane. Wow.
He's only 27 and incredibly talented and still likely to make the Springboks. So, it's amazing. We've got lots of really talented international players from Argentina, from New Zealand, from South Africa, and from Europe even coming over now to play Major League Rugby. The talent level has improved. The quality of the game has improved. I cover Major League Rugby at games in both New York, D.C., and also Atlanta. I had a great expense fly down to Atlanta to do that, but you only have so many miles. I ate up all my miles. I had to start paying for those flights. But so 21, 20, 2031, 2035, we're likely to get the Rugby World Cup, it appears, at this point. We'll see. But, for me, Keith, when I go to a World Cup, it's kind of like your daughter there. It's also about the culture and the environment. I don't just go for the rugby. I try to mix it up and see as much as I can. And let's see, I've been to the following World Cup. So every World Cup since 2011. Went to New Zealand in 2011, and then in 2014, I happened to have to go from Africa back to Germany for meetings with my headquarters in Stuttgart, and the Women's World Cup was underway in Paris. So I had the weekend free. I bought a ticket. I flew to Paris, and I was there for the final stages at Marcoussis, which was hard to get to. I had to take a train and a bus and run. It was a mess out in the middle of nowhere. And then at Jean Bouin Stadium in Paris for the final and the semifinals that day. I was there for that. It was pretty amazing stuff. Really enjoyed it. That was 2014. 2015, of course, I went to England, and I went to 17 matches all over the country. I've been to England many, many times, but nonetheless, it was a great experience to discover new places or places I haven't been in a long time. 2017 in Ireland for the Women's World Cup again. 2018, and that was brilliant in Belfast. And then 2018, also, speaking of Belfast, Dwayne Vermeulen just signed with Ulster.
Yeah, I saw that. That's going to be really good for him. He's going to make some good coin.
Yep.
And it's going to be good for his family. And that's I love Dwayne Vermeulen. I've got a Bulls jersey up here in the corner. I love that guy. That is the picture of blue collar work ethic, and that's another big reason why I'm such a fan of this sport, because you see so many guys like that in this sport. You don't see the overpaid stars we unfortunately get here in the States. you get a lot of guys like that. You get guys like Brian Habana. You get these guys that are just good, blue collar, love their country, love their sport, and just, they never let their heads get too big.
Well, that's a key aspect of rugby. That one of the things that makes it so attractive, and I try to explain to people, is that really it's in every person's sport. Really, anybody can play it. Guys, girls play the game, and most of the top athletes are humble. They're approachable. You can reach out to them. They'll talk to you. It's not like that in other sports, especially like football, soccer. That's, those people are so full of themselves. National Football League are so full of themselves, as you mentioned. Baseball players a little more approachable, but it's still the celebrity and fame gets wrapped up in it. And there's fame. I mean, look, the top rugby players are very famous the world over, very well known. You mentioned names like Quade Cooper just made a massive impact beating the Springboks last week, and he's being hailed as the toast of Australia now, and rightly so. Yeah. Rightly so. As a brave.
And that's why I don't like Quade Santini Cooper, because I feel like he doesn't have that. I mean, maybe he has it now, but for years I felt like he didn't have that ethic. He didn't. For people that don't know, rugby was amateur 26 years ago still. It was still an amateur sport, and it still has very much that vibe. My missus, that's why she likes going to games, because at the end of it, they come up and shake your hand and talk to you. They don't care. You know what I mean? It's still very much like we thank the fans. And it's the unfortunate part about what's going on in South Africa without the fans being there, because people don't realize how much the fans are part of the experience. It's just a part of it, man. And it's really sad that there's no fans in the stands right now there. And, I always kind of mention that in my videos, especially if I go to college football games and stuff like that here. I tell them, I'm like, I know you guys miss this, and hopefully we'll get back to normal at some point, because it's not the same without the fans, man. It doesn't matter how much sound you pump in; it's not the same.
Oh no, that's so fake. I find that so annoying. I mean, empty stadium, and you've got people pumping in sound. It's very distracting. It's utter nonsense, and it really is sad. I mean, because without getting to the nonsense about the hysteria and the politics, but we won't get there. But it's totally unnecessary, wholly unnecessary. I mean, stadiums that seat 40,000 people, you can easily put 5,000 people in there, maintain outrageous amounts of social distance between people. Yes. So it's just moronic, to say the least. But anyway, and also we see in other parts of the world full stadiums, and people are going about their business, no distancing there. So it's really frustrating. But of course, South Africa now has the audacity to say that they actually want to hold the FIFA Club Soccer World Championship, World Cup in December. But you can't have fans go to rugby, but they're going to hold that in Cape Town. So also, I don't know the current status, but I understand that the HSBC Sevens tournament in Cape Town supposedly has been canceled because of South Africa's restrictions. I don't know if that's the case. I haven't got confirmation, but that is certainly the rumor floating around. That's kind of sad. Now, in the chat, Fleshin says that Germany, now that's a country that's potential in rugby. You're right. I nearly played for the Stuttgart club there when I was stationed in Stuttgart. Germany is up and coming in the rugby world. They're not doing too bad. Hong Kong is another hungry place, but of course with the Chinese interfering there, we don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, so that's gone. So I was saying that, and we got off track a little bit talking about the nice nature and the friendly nature of rugby players. But one other part of that that's really awesome about the game with spectators is that after a match, the teams make the rounds and thank the fans. They always do that. I mean, you don't see that. You see that occasionally in soccer, but you don't really see that in other sports where the players make an effort to go around. And some people are like, well, they're just visiting family and friends. Well, they don't have family and friends all the way around the stadium. They walk the entire stadium. So let's be honest about that. So I was in Ireland in 2017, San Francisco for the Sevens World Cup in 2018. The tickets were reasonably priced, but of course, staying in San Francisco requires selling your liver or harvesting other organs because it's outrageous. Listen, Keith, I didn't pay anything for hotels because I had like 1 million points on my Hilton that I like a squirrel. I buried them for years and years and years. And then I went to San Francisco. Well, I do that with a lot of stuff. That way I can afford to do these things. But I went to San Francisco. My Hampton Inn was $350 a night for the cheapest night. It was $451 for the most expensive night for a Hampton Inn. And I switched to a couple other Hilton properties. It cost $2,800 for the nights that I was there to stay in hotels. And my flight to California cost me less than $300. My train tickets cost me less than $40 round trip. And my tickets for the tournament were $185 for the whole tournament. So, it's the lodging will kill you. And of course, my reward for that hotel was to walk down the street and step over human feces and hypodermic needles. And that's no hyperbole, Keith. That's a fact, brother. No,
trust me. I've been to California many, many times. I know that I've got even in my friendship outside of the sport, I'm very much into punk rock music. And like, these are guys that you would think would be so pro And I mean, I got a friend in Sacramento named Mikey Hood. He's a lead singer of a band called Hoods. They're a hardcore punk band. They're from Sacramento. And this guy is covered in tattoos, hardcore, whatever. And he's even sick of it, man. He's sick of it. He's like, he's just like, it doesn't matter who's running it. This is horrible. He drives around and films videos. This is my community. And there's people sleeping on sidewalks. Like, this has got to stop. So it's not a left or a right thing. I think everybody's just sick of it. It's go to Austin, Texas. It looks the exact same now.
Wow. Austin was a very upscale town. I haven't been there in ages. So, in fact, I was supposed to go to Fort Hood next week. I don't think that's going to happen now because of a number of factors. But anyway, yeah. So Boss Ever says Namibia is a great example of a team that's basically amateur nature sport. Indeed, it is. Only a few professional players, mostly farm boys who play for the Velviches. I'm a massive Velviches fan, and I predicted they were going to beat Canada at the Rugby World Cup, but unfortunately, Typhoon Hagibis had other plans and they canceled that game. That would have been Namibia's first victory ever. Canada was a wounded duck. They barely made the World Cup. They didn't make the Americas 1. They didn't make the Americas 2. They went to the Repage tournament in South France, and they barely squeaked out of there. But let me ask you this question, Keith, because I was a little disturbed by your photograph. You sent me a photograph, which we put on the banner. It was quite disturbing. I mean, listen, I almost edited the photograph, but I had to respect I didn't do it because I presume that might have been your daughter in the picture there. But is that a dreaded All Blacks jersey she's wearing?
So we this was right around the time.
I'm sorry, folks. This broadcast has been interrupted. No.
So she has a couple of jerseys in her closet. She has a couple of Chiefs jerseys, Waikato. That's my Super Rugby team right there in New Zealand. But we had I was when we went on lockdown here, I was still having to go to work every day. She obviously was out of school. And, I think it's a really fun activity. Me and my daughter will make biltong together just because it's part of South African heritage, obviously a big snack item there. But it's also just, it's just a good family thing. Like I enjoy, she'll help me mix the seasonings just correct. And then whenever it comes out of the box, she picks out the pieces that she wants and we slice them down. It's a family activity, and I just wanted to take a photo of us. I had a mullet at the time. I looked ridiculous, and she put on the AB's jersey, and I put on my Springbok jersey, and just thought, hey. And a lot of people, when they see that photo, they're like, what? And I'm like, yes, it's a house divided at times. Although she's not actually an All Blacks fan. She just put the jersey on. So.
Honestly, Keith, you sent me the photo last night. If I had made a commitment to you to do the stream today, I would have just canceled the whole thing after seeing that photograph.
Don't be that way, man. Don't be that way.
Don't be a hater. Don't be a hater. I hate the All Blacks with a passion I reserve for the Dallas Cowboys and the New England Patriots.
It was kind of an interesting thing because I got in heavily into rugby a little bit in 03. The 07 Cup was the first one that I followed every single match. I obviously Springboks fan. I loved that Tonga team in 07 with like Epi Taioni, Nili Latu, Nili T. Pole, Finau Maka. It was such an entertaining. We saw them in that first half in that pool game against South Africa when was it Andre Kutsia, who was who had filled in at 10 there. They had put kind of out the B squad for the South Africans. And he kept shanking the kicks that entire first half. And then obviously, was it Jake White, who was the coach at the time? Second half comes in. He brings in Victor Matfield. He brings in Percy Montgomery. He brings in Brian Habana. And you couldn't. Tonga, they're great. They're starting 15 solid. Everything after that was just like, okay, they can't keep up. And it's one of those countries that I really, we have a huge Tongan community here in North Texas and Euless, Texas. And I really have a lot of love for Tongans and Tongan rugby. It's always been those Samoan boys, Tonga, Fiji, Samoa. I have such a deep love for them because they're like everybody wants to see the little man win. And they have so much talent. They just don't have the money or the resources to really do it. And now, it seems that Japan has begun poaching their players at wholesale. If you look at Japan's roster, it's like half Tongan guys, it seems now. And it's really unfortunate that a country that's that great at the sport just doesn't produce better results there. And, it's something that has been talked about for years. There's documentaries. Dan Leo from Samoa did one. And even Pacific Warriors, narrated by the Scottish actor Brian Cox. Great documentary. It was on Amazon for quite a while here. There's a lot of obviously issues with the Pacific Islanders. And when this whole thing started and they had the Tri-Nations instead of the Rugby Championship, I was really vocal about, man, why don't we bring those boys over here? Why don't we bring Fiji, Tonga, and Samoa and do a tournament with the USA? Because, granted, I don't think we have a prayer to beat a team like Fiji here in the USA. We'd make it interesting, but, it would be great to develop our national side against those three countries. And it gives those guys, even if we give them a little bit of the coin for coming over here, that's good money for them. And they get to come to America and play in America in stadiums. You know what I mean? It's our organization is much better here because we have the money. So,
well, we've actually done that. It just had to come to the U.S. We played the Pacific Nations Cup, and the one just before the World Cup. And we actually, I think we beat Tonga, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to remember. But we lost to Japan. And Japan, of course, went on to win all 4 pool stage games. Something that I predicted to go 3-1, 4-0. I was a bit surprised. Really well done. No, it is. The thing you mentioned about the Pacific Nations players, whatever affinity or like I have for Tonga rapidly evaporated as I sat in Osaka with the U.S. leading at the end of the first half in the final pool stage game of the 2019 Rugby World Cup. And in the second half, a couple USA players were out of position, 2 line breaks, and suddenly we lost and got no victories in that tournament. So Tonga is on my crap list. I'm often accused of being Father Christmas or Santa Claus, and they're not even getting coal from me. They're just going to have to freeze. So I'm not happy with Tonga right now. But you mentioned players being poached by Japan. Well, you can't stop there. Let's just be honest. There are no Kiwis playing on the All Blacks. It's the all Pacific Islander team, and plenty of them playing on the Wallabies too. Thankfully, the Springboks don't play that nonsense. Only South Africans can play. The exception, of course, having been Tendam Tawira, but he was a South African resident. He'd been there for years and years and years. But they play South Africans, and I prefer that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He played for DC for a couple of games after he got his visa last year.
I remember that.
And then the season got caught because of COVID, and he's done. It's a shame. But, yeah, I know. And I was supposed to go down and cover those games, but I was busy. And then I was headed to a game, and the season got canceled. I was so mad because I was going to go interview him. But anyway, let me ask you this question. You started a rugby channel, and why? Just to help grow the sport and make people aware of it?
So originally it was just to do little clips of, hey, this is my life and whatever. And then I'll tell you the thing that was really kind of the snapping point where it was obviously my first video that had quite a few views, was that second British and Irish Lions test, watching that on TV here in the States and just noticing how they would say one thing to Alan Wynne Jones and something else to Sia Khaleesi completely different. And you just kind of felt like, or it was the first test, excuse me. You just kind of felt like
something's
what's
off.
The deal? What's the deal here? Why is that? And then I had heard the rumor of Rassi making a video, and I was like, I've got to find this video. So this was before it became widely circulated. So I ended up finding it on some third-party site. And I sat and watched it, and I was just like, the intro was a bit long, like I'd said in my video, but I felt like, okay, if Americans want to follow this sport, I need to make a video so they know exactly what they're talking about. Hey, this is why this is happening, and this is why this is happening. I think rugby union is a unique sport, and the fact that if you watch an NFL game here, an NHL game here, an MLB game here, or an NBA game here, yeah, they'll mention the refs briefly on camera at the beginning of the game. Rugby union is unique in the fact that it's the only sport where they will mention every single official's name. And the reason they do that is because, there's not a unifying standard. British guys do it one way, Jocko Piper does it one way. Everybody has their, and I feel like if World Rugby wants the sport to grow, they need to nip that in the bud as quickly as possible. We need to have unbiased officiating in this sport at all times, because you're not going to be able to sell that to America. You're not. They're not going to want to buy something where, oh, the ref really does make a difference. Yes, it does, unfortunately, really make a difference in this sport. So that's why I did it. I did it because I was hoping that Americans who maybe have the plan on getting into the sport, because maybe Dallas, we have an MLR team starting up this next year. I started the channel to give Americans a non-South African accent, a non-Kiwi accent, a non-English accent, a non-French guy, to let them know that, hey, there's a guy in your backyard that follows this sport, and this is what you need to watch. This is what you need to pay attention to. These are the things that, unfortunately, I think are kind of like the bane of the sport at this point, is that you see so much red tape in the officiating of the sport, unfortunately. And if they want it to grow, they're going to have to fix that, and not soon, as soon as possible. It needs to be corrected. So that's why I started doing the videos, just, if anything, just to, let people, not just in America, but in the world, know that, like, yes, I do support the Southern Hemisphere, and more so the Springbok brand of this sport. I love the Springboks, not just for personal, like, I have connection, but because when I look at the Springboks, I look at people that are like me, that, like, if they didn't have rugby, they'd be working some 50-hour-a-week job that they probably wouldn't be too happy doing. They would, they have family, they have kids, and I look at the Springboks as being a really good, like, you know what? I can look at those guys and I'm proud of every single guy on that pitch. Regardless of whether they win or lose, I always am proud of being a Springbok supporter, no matter what. Even after the 57-0 shellacking we took in New Zealand in 2017, I was still proud of my team. That was embarrassing.
I was not proud that day.
Oh,
that was beyond embarrassing.
I was embarrassed. And and in the post-game post-game conference, you've got Katsia sitting there looking like a deer in the headlights, and you've got Eben Etzebeth sitting next to him looking like, I'm so depressed, I don't even want to open my eyes. It's so depressing. And to go from that feeling to lifting the cup in 2 years.
2 years, yep.
Made me so proud of that team. Those guys went from being at the bottom to winning it all. Even after losing the opening pool game in the Rugby World Cup, those guys pulled it together and they won it all. And it was, I get goosebumps, man. Like, I'm getting goosebumps because it was like, I was so proud of what they did. They came from nothing and they stuck it together. They put the best team they could and they won it, and they shocked the world.
And they won. They won as a team. That's the key thing there. The bomb squad approach was brilliant. It wore down all the opponents. So do you know where the first leg of that all started, that recovery, when Rossi took over his first test match? Do you know where that occurred offhand?
Where was that?
That was at the United States Third World Stadium called RFK in Washington, D.C.
D.C. versus, were they playing Wales?
Wales. I was there.
I wanted to go. I was not.
There. I was there. And I was so angry because it would have been so easy to win that game. But Rossi put all these debutantes out there, and they kept making unforced errors, knock-ons, and it was just and bad kicks and bad ball positioning, terrible offloads. And I'm like, whoa, put the guys on the pitch who actually know what they're doing. But Rossi had a plan. It wasn't about winning that game. But you know why they came to D.C.? It wasn't about that. And this is something I wrote about in an article about 3 years ago before the Rugby World Cup, when the Argentinian former Puma player who was with World Rugby under Sir Bill Beaumont there, he talked about expanding the Rugby World Cup. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Hold on. Slow down. It's expanding the World Cup? You've got rugby unions that are bankrupt. The United States is declaring bankruptcy of the rugby union. South Africa was on the verge, sorrow of declaring bankruptcy. The reason they came to Washington, D.C. is they were guaranteed $750,000. So basically the Springboks pimped their players out to keep their union going. And nobody talks about that. If South Africa's rugby union is virtually bankrupt, we had Zimbabwe trying to qualify the World Cup. They went to Tunisia. They couldn't pay their hotel bill. They slept rough on the street before their World Cup qualifier. This is the state of rugby because World Rugby is the old boys club that exists for the Northern European teams and the All Blacks and the Wallabies and at times the Springboks. And it's all focused on keeping it the old boys club. Take a look at the structure of World Rugby. Take a look at their decisions. They try to come up with this stupid concept of like a Super 12, and there would be 12 teams in this competing every year. And basically what it was meant to do was keep all the up-and-coming countries out of it. They don't want anyone else at the table. They don't want the Eagles at the table. They don't want the Canadians at the table. They don't want, well, the Pumas, okay, they're okay with that. They're part of the old boys club in Summer 6. But they don't want Hong Kong and Germany, all these other countries, Tonga, to rise up, Samoa, and be
Georgia, Romania.
Georgia is one of the teams most discriminated against. They should be part of the Six Nations long ago.
Kick Italy out. Kick Italy out.
Italy is useless. Georgia's at least competitive. Those Oaks can play some rugby. Or expand it to the 8 nations. It had Romania and Georgia. But it's really frustrating what goes on with World Rugby. Now, when I wrote that, there were several reasons I said it's a bad idea. Well, I love rugby. I love to see more teams. It's a bad idea to expand it when you've got bankrupt unions and stuff like that. And there were other problems. But one thing I didn't talk about was the officiating. But what's happened since then? Oh, my goodness. Now, one of my favorite officials of all time, Craig Joubert, whom I met at the Sevens tournament. He was visiting in San Francisco. He has one of the most famous calls, blown calls, I'd have to say, in rugby, World Rugby history, with Scotland versus Australia in the 2015 World Cup on that penalty.
I do remember this.
And it's very unfair to Craig because it wasn't a reviewable thing at the time. You couldn't go to the TMO. Had he been able to go to the TMO, he would have overturned his own decision because there's a problem with it. And it cost Scotland the game and the Wallabies advance when Scotland should have advanced. Really sad. So that's the things to remember. But the thing is that people don't pay attention to this. Keith, you know this. The officials aren't just officials; they're world-class athletes. They run more than the other players. While the number 8 and the hooker are lumbering in the middle of the field, just catching their breath, and doing crashes, the officials running back and forth, up and down the pitch, and it's quite exhausting. Jaco Piper, Craig Joubert, all these guys, Marius Jonker, they really, really put their heart and soul into this, and they come under a lot of unfair criticism. And I'll get you in a second here. But what really bothers me is that I think it's unfair, and I don't pick on the officials. I pick on World Rugby. They keep creating more convoluted rules, changing how you engage in the scrum. Now this year they're testing this 50-22 rule, where if you kick the ball, it bounces outside the 22 into touch, you get the ball. It's like you had a penalty. What the heck is that? I guess it's meant to force the other team to play better defense. And then the worst one of all, I saw this in St. John's when the Eagles played. The Eagles crashed across the line. They scored a try. The official had a bad angle. He couldn't get a view. It's a crappy television coverage because it's in St. John's, Newfoundland. It's not like it's, in South Africa or in
it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
And so what happens is he can't see it, so he says it's held up. Fair enough. But now instead of going to a 5-meter scrum, you're punished. The Canadians got the ball and a goal line kick. They kicked it out 48 meters, and the Americans stood around like, what's going on? And the Canadians picked up the ball. So instead of having a try, Canada picks it up, and a few minutes later scores a try. That is one of the dumbest rules I've ever seen. All these changes constantly, the laws changing World Rugby, really screw the sport up, and I think World Rugby needs to accept responsibility for monkeying with the game.
I've done the same thing. I've gone off on USA Rugby. I've gone off on World Rugby. I think that, like I said, once again, if you want this sport to grow, you're going to have to fix the officiating. That's going to be the big thing because people in America, they're not going to watch, man. They're not going to watch if that's really how different the game is depending on who you have officiating.
Yep.
I do, like I said, I try not to unfairly criticize the officiating and the referees because they're much like the players. You can see them at the pub after the game and have a drink with them. They're just like that. They're not. It's not like they're walking around like FIFA guys with bulletproof vests on when they're not on the pitch. But I really hate to say it. You keep doing this, you're going to end up just like FIFA. You're going to end up because look. I don't want to go into a whole tangent about that, but to me, the IOC and FIFA, those would be breaking RICO laws in this country.
Oh, absolutely.
That's organized crime is what those
organizations are. The Department of Justice has gone after Sepp Blatter and FIFA for exactly that reason. I don't know the status of those cases. I think they just kind of put them to the side and aren't talking about it. But let me get to two things very quickly, and then we'll switch to talk about this weekend's game. The first one is Boss Zebra said that it's true. The Namibian Rugby Club just lost electricity to their stadium because they couldn't pay their electric bill. That's just show you how sad it is. And that's the state of rugby, and that's unfortunate. What I will say about this is that the sport and the enthusiasm for it has survived. And I think one of the most impressive leagues has been Major League Rugby. They conducted their entire season without canceling a game due to Corona, without spreading Corona, and did it all over the country and took the bizarre but very effective step of forcing the Arrows, because of the travel restrictions across border, to come to Atlanta before the season started. And it was brilliant. Toronto had a bad season, but they had a season, and the league played. It was unbelievable. It was well done. They started the season with no fans because there were restrictions. They were able to add fans as we went along. Major League Rugby did a brilliant job. A brand new league. They pulled it off. I've been less impressed by Super Rugby, which is disintegrated because of the selfish behavior of the Kiwis and the Aussies. Super Rugby is dead. That's unfortunate. They ruined Super 12, made it Super 14. It was still good, but that was it. Super 15, no. Then expansion, 18 teams in Japan, playing in Malaysia, playing in Argentina. It's utter disaster. I'm excited about the United Rugby Championship with 4 South African teams up there, although I feel the Cheetahs have been cheated, no pun intended, and the Southern Kings are gone, as we know. But, so there was something I wanted to add there, but it slipped my mind now. But let's go ahead and switch to this weekend because we're going to run out of time here. We got about 13 minutes before you got to roll. 19 minutes. Anyway, so you got to get to work. But, okay, so last weekend, I'm sitting here going, I need a milk carton. I need a milk carton. Why do I need a milk carton? I need to put Mornay Steyn's picture on a milk carton. Where in the world is Mornay Steyn? Listen, we had serious problems at fly half last week, and people were talking about the 8 points that Andre Pollard missed. By the way, full disclosure, massive Andre Pollard fan. Always have been since I saw him in the under-20s. Huge fan. Glad he was brought up early his Springboks. But sometimes he's off, and he was off. And it wasn't just points. It wasn't just doinking the ball off the post right in front of the post. It was also his kicking game. He made terrible kicks. When he's kicking down the pitch on a penalty, instead of getting 30 or 40 meters, he gained 15. I don't know what was going on with Andre Pollard last week. I thought that Damian Willemse was brought in the game way too late. And where was Mornay Steyn? Any thoughts on how we're doing on fly half and any concerns about this weekend's game?
I've already brought it up in a previous video. Once again, I don't like comparing us to the All Blacks, but they are our nearest opponent in the rankings, and how they have an A, B, C, D option with them. They've got Richie Mo'unga, they've got Beauden Barrett, Jordy Barrett, Damian McKenzie. Why don't we have that? Why don't we have that? We've got the player pool. I was very, very disappointed. When you look at the stats at the end of the game, and I had to go back and watch it a second time, how many clean breaks did we have? We had zero. Yep. Zero in that entire game. I don't even remember. I know Willie LaRue played. I don't remember seeing him on the pitch hardly at all. I don't remember seeing any of our backs getting involved. And yes, we play that slow grind game, but they're not Argentina. We play the All Blacks next week after this game.
Yep.
You think we're going to stand a chance?
We're going to get slaughtered.
They're going to destroy us, man, because we're going to try and grind them down, and they're just going to toss the ball back, and you're going to have Sevu Reece, or you're going to have Rico Iwani, or you're going to have Anton Leonard-Brown, or you're going to have Jordy Barrett running it up the gut, and that's going to be it. And it's like I almost felt like I'm wondering if a part of it had to do with fans being in the stand. It was a very nervous atmosphere. They hadn't been playing, although Andre Pollard's been playing in Europe. He's had fans in the stands, and it just felt like we almost walked into that game, because I was one that was doing it too. I was laughing about Quade Santini Cooper being picked. I laughed. I made a video laughing about it. That guy is horrible. He's garbage, yada, yada, yada. And then he turned around and shut me up real quick. But I still am sticking to the thing. I don't think the Wallabies won. We lost. We had the opportunity to win that game, and we never stepped up to the plate. And I kind of just looked at the guys on the pitch, and it kind of almost looked like they were just kind of like, we're just here to compete. It's like, no, you come to win. Go in and win. This is the Wallabies. This is a wounded Wallabies squad. Yep. They are in rebuild mode 100%. When you're having to bring Quade Cooper back into your side because your young guys cannot keep up, that tells you everything you need to know. Now, I think Dave Rennie is the right choice. I think he is going to rebuild that team. But I didn't have a problem with Michael Chikla either. I thought he was
I have a problem with that, Oak.
Towards the end, he was horrible, but I liked him at the beginning. I thought he was a great and exciting coach for that program. And, I think it's also the bit of being a child of immigrants kind of thing, too, because that's what he was as well. And I just felt like last weekend, we just didn't go into it with we're going to smash these guys into a fine powder. I didn't see anybody get folded. Now, I will say the pros on it was our forwards, our front, middle, back row. We were obviously superior to the Wallabies. The amount of times that I saw them collapsing was uncountable. But our backs never got involved. We never got the ball back to anybody that could bust out for a run. I know we don't have Cheslin Kolbe, and that does hurt a lot. I love that guy. I think that is my favorite wing in the entire world right now, and it sucks not having him. But the difference between the teams that are great and the teams that are good is those teams that are great, when they're missing guys, they can replace them and they can still win. And I felt like we just didn't do that. We didn't do that last weekend. And I'm hoping this coming weekend we get the formula right. We get it back out and we get out and show that, hey, we're not just number one because we won the last World Cup. We're number one because we're the best team on the planet. We're the best team on the planet, and we've got to get out there and prove it. We've got to get out and prove that this weekend. And see, that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, see, that's when I compare the All Blacks to a team I also despise, the New England Patriots. It's the same way. When the Colts were cleaning up the league, big Indianapolis Colts fan when I followed the NFL for most of my life until recently because they betray America. But I was a Colts fan forever. And when Peyton Manning was there, the Colts go up by 21 points in the first half, and Peyton Manning come out of the game. And the other team had closed the gap, and they'd still win. But, when with Brady and with Belichick in New England, they'd be up 75-0, and Brady be out there still trying to score and rack up points. They put their foot on the throat of the opponent. And in rugby, you need the points because it affects rankings. So it's the same with the All Blacks. They don't care who the opponent is. They're the world champs. They're going to prove it every game. The Springboks act as if, well, we're the world champs because we won the last World Cup, and that's good enough. It's not good enough. Listen, I can run through, in my view, the abysmal performances, and I'll do that very quickly, and you can comment on this. Andre Pollard, out of 10, a 4 last week is what I give him. Steven Kitsoff, incredibly disappointing performance in my view. I was disappointed in him. A very poor performance. Eben Etzebeth, one of my all-time favorite players. He was almost where was he? Was he
MIA.
Was he in the game? Lucanio Am. Makazole and Pimpy, no impact on the game. And Nkosi, was he even in the game? I only saw him on the camera twice in a freaking match. That's it. Now, there was some good play out there. Malcolm Marks played bang on when he came in.
Lights out.
Vincent Kolk played very well when he came on. But it wasn't too late, but it got the Springboks back in the game. But they shouldn't have been behind at that point. They should have already been ahead. And the thing is that they didn't whine, but they complained. They said, we felt that our scrum was better and we won the scrums. Well, you know what? That's not how the official called it. Now, I disagree with that official on several calls, but he was consistently wrong for both sides, I think, most of the time. But honestly, when they got that penalty, it was on our side of the pitch for that scrum. I was a little confused because Nick White was offsides. Not only was he offsides, but he threw Herschel Yankees to the ground, and it was missed. And the same thing happened on the previous scrum on the opposite side of the pitch when we got that one back. And he's offsides. That shouldn't be allowed. And anyway, but I knew, I just had this bad feeling that they were going to screw this up and that Quade Cooper is going to win the game. And he did. And it was very disheartening.
The worst part about all that is I'm not on social media, but I get on it. I look at things and stuff like that. And I always like to look at the pictures of our training sessions, the guys with the smiles on their face. It kind of gets me in a happy mood and whatnot. But then I'll go over to Quade Cooper's stuff in the last week. And this is another reason why I do not like that. Man, that guy's walking around like he's like Michael Jordan right now.
Yeah, he's had one great performance in 6 years.
Yeah. No, and I can't get Aussie citizenship, but as soon as he wins a game, here's your citizenship, Mr.
Yeah, that's just BS too. Yep.
It's like, really, guys, really? Like, because to me, like, having been in that part of the world, Quade Cooper doesn't even sound Aussie to me. When he does interviews, he sounds like a Kiwi. He sounds like a Kiwi.
Well, he is a Kiwi.
Yeah, and it's like you're trying to talk about, I'm Australian. No, you're not, dude. You're a Kiwi. Just to face it up. But I felt like we walked into that game thinking that, we're number one, so this should be no problem. These guys are, they just got burned by the All Blacks 3 games in a row. No, dude, that's not how it is. They're your foe. The Southern Hemisphere, any one of those teams can win. We watched Argentina beat the All Blacks last year in the Tri-Nations. I will say one thing. It's really unfortunate what's happened with the Jaguares in that. I felt like that really kept Argentina's growth in the sport, and I think we're going to start seeing because they don't have that anymore. I think, unfortunately, we're going to see a decline in that team, and it's really unfortunate because I think Mario Ledesma is a hell of a coach, and that's going to be the collateral damage. And Sanzar, basically, at the end of the day, that's going to be the collateral damage, and you're going to see Argentina fall off big time because of this, and it's really unfortunate because much like Tonga, it was a team that I rooted for. Like, I have a Jaguares jersey. I'm totally like, when they made the final finally in that last season of what was the Super Rugby, you root for those guys because I'm in America too. It's like, hey, they're the guys from far off. You root for them, that, and because the way you feel about the Patriots, that's how I feel about the Crusaders.
Oh, it's ironic.
And the Crusaders, man, I cannot stand them.
It's ironic because the only Kiwi Super Rugby club whose jersey doesn't want to make me vomit is the Crusaders.
Oh, you don't like the orange and black for the
the Chiefs? Oh, that's horrific. That's horrific. I
man.
cannot stand those jerseys. But anyway,
Hamilton is beautiful, man.
Oh, no. Well, Hamilton's a nice town. I've been there.
Yeah.
In fact, that was the first game I went to in the 2011 Rugby World Cup. So that story was I was supposed to go to Chad to be the senior defense official, and then a general found out that I was available, and well, not really available. They diverted me to the U.S. Africa Command. I got the Africa Command, and I'd already worked out with the ambassador that I could take holiday and go to the World Cup because it was about 6 months after my reporting date. Well, now since I was delayed, I got to Germany, and now the World Cup is just like 6 weeks away. You can't rock up and go, hey, I'm here to work. By the way, I'd like to take holiday here in a month and a half. So what happened is that I was a division chief. They reorganized, and suddenly I was a deputy chief. And the chief, who really didn't want me around because she didn't know anything about Africa, she'd just been assigned there as a military police officer. She was happy to see me go. She said, oh, you can take leave. So I bought myself a round-trip ticket. I went to the travel office, and the first price they quoted was 7,800 euros. I'm like, I'm not Bill Gates. Is that business class? No, that was economy. I'm like, are you high? So next they did another one, and it was 3,200 euros, and that was from Germany going through Bangkok. And I'm like, listen, and the people working there are all German, so they get this joke. I said, listen, I don't need to visit Bangkok. I'm not a pedophile, so I'd rather take a different route. Yeah, so, and I'm not going to pay 3,200 euros. So I said, you know what? Why don't you try to fly me through South Africa? A lot of South Africans are going. There'll be flights there. Maybe there's something. So they went all the way through, and I was willing to go to Frankfurt and to Munich to take the trip, to take the train and make it inconvenient just to save money. But it wound up, I got to fly from Stuttgart on British Airways to London to Joburg, and then I took a week's break and I traveled around down there, and then I continued on and I got to New Zealand, and it cost me 1,800 euros or $1,800 in the end. It was pretty good. It was pretty.
Yeah,
good.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad, man.
Yeah, and that's so I got to New Zealand. I didn't have anything except my return ticket and a rental car reservation. I picked up my rental car. I got a SIM card at the airport, and I loaded it on my phone. I got my rental car, and I had nowhere to stay. It was after midnight, and that was the night that Ireland was defeated or by Australia. I think it was 15-9 or something like that. Anyway, so they were all cheering because they wanted to see Ireland, or was it the other way around? I know Ireland beat the Wallabies. That's what. Anyway, they're all cheering because the Wallabies got beat in New Zealand. Anyway, so I get through the body cavity search in New Zealand because they want to check your rectal cavity for freaking seeds and pollen and such like that. Do you have any shoes in your bag? Yeah, we'd like to see them. They're brand new. They're still in the box. It's hiking boots. Wow, we got to see those. Yeah, anyway, so I get through there. I drive out. There's a Holiday Inn. I stay at the Holiday Inn. The next morning, I drive into Auckland. I see a Wendy's. I stop at Wendy's. I buy a newspaper. Okay, where am I going to go? I had no tickets. So Chris Wyatt just gave a €7 super chat and says, thanks for bringing Keith as a guest. Chris, don't know if he can do it, but sent him a message on chat. Okay, no, he's not watching the stream right now. Chris, you can reach out to me. I've got contact for him if you want to be in touch with him. We don't pass personal details here, but we'll do that. So
I've talked to him many times. He's great. He's given me a lot of info I did not know. He was who really put Johan Husen on my radar.
Oh, okay.
And he was one of the few followers that was like, "Don't be too prideful. We could lose to the Wallabies." And what was he? He was 100% correct on that one. So it was. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Chris has been with my channel for a long time. He doesn't super chat often, but he super chatted today, 7 years. Thanks a lot for that. But so I guess you know how to reach out to him. So I didn't have any tickets. I looked in the paper. There were two games that day. One was just too far, the one I wanted to go to. But I said, Hamilton, that's not too far. I think I can get there. So I stopped at McDonald's or Starbucks, something like that. Got something to drink. Hit the road. Drove down the highway. And as I approached Hamilton, I don't know, probably about 30 kilometers from it, the road narrows from a super highway down to like a 2-lane on each side. And I saw traffic backed up. So I took a quick exit, got up on this overpass, and I looked, and I could see traffic as far as the eye could see going to Hamilton. I'm like, I'll never make the game. So I looked at the map. There was a little mountain ridge line to the east of there. I drove and went down it, but there's much more to the story. I got down there. I ran into a guy at the stadium, and I got a ticket for 50 New Zealand dollars. It was a $90 face value ticket. I'm like, where's this at? I bought a Wales cap and a Wales jersey, walked inside, sat down about 8 minutes before the game started. I was right at midfield, about 6 rows up. Couldn't believe it. That night, went back to my hotel. I found a hotel downtown, an old hotel, but it was amazing. They had free internet, which was that was rare in New Zealand at the time.
It's rare in New Zealand.
Yeah, and only McDonald's had free internet. Starbucks didn't. You had to pay for it. But I had free internet, so I went and booked as many games as I could for the time I had left, and as wide a geographic dispersal so I see as much of the country as possible. And I wound up going to 8 games, and including the one in Nelson. It was pretty cool. Well, we're going to run out of time here in a few seconds, Keith. We call it the Indaba Conversation because it's less an interview and more a conversation. I think you got a sense, a feel for that here today. But let me get this from you. All right, so Wallabies, Springboks, home game for the Wallabies. Last week was the Springboks home game in Australia, but home game for the Wallabies, and this one is in Brisbane, I think is where they're playing at tonight. 3 a.m. I'll be broadcasting on this channel, and then after it's over, I'll load it up on Rugby Ascendant. But let me get your predictions for tonight. What are we going to see, and who's going to walk away with this victory?
I think we're going to see a lot of the same. Hopefully our backs get into the game. If our backs can get into the game, and if Pollard can clean those kicks up, I think we easily cruise to like a 12-point victory. So I'm looking at maybe like a 28-17, maybe 28-16, something like that along those lines. But I think we're going to have to establish dominance early in this match and let them know this is not going to be a lot of the same. It is an unfortunate thing that we didn't make a whole lot of changes to the lineup, obviously with Kitsoff going to the bench. I like Nakane a lot. I think he's a really solid guy up front. I am worried about Marvin Ori. Do you know the nature of RJ Snyman's injury? Why is he not on this squad? RG Snyman, or is he just aged out, or whatever it is? Because we do need that guy badly. But
no, I've seen no coverage of RJ Steyn. No discussion about it whatsoever. There was one player who went home for personal reasons and left the squad. I don't see who did the replacement. It was Van der Westhuizen or somebody like that who left. But no, I don't know what's going on with Steyn. Steyn, I haven't seen him at all of late. He must have had a serious injury or something that's going on with him, because he is just a massive pounder. I'm with you. I'm a little concerned about Ori, but Trevor Nkanye is brilliant. He's brilliant. He does a great job. What I'm hoping, I'll let you finish in a second. What I'm hoping here, with a lack of changes, is that hopefully it indicates not a commitment to stubbornness, but an expectation that the bomb squad is going to make an appearance much earlier in this game if things aren't going well. I want to equate this game to the Canadian series, the Canada-U.S. World Cup qualifier we just saw in St. John's and then in Glendale, Colorado, in which the Eagles lost or left 6 or 7 tries on the pitch within 5 meters. From mistakes, from the ball being held up, from penalties, from dropping knock-ons. 6 or 7 times they could have scored a try in that game in St. John's, and they lost. And they were on the knife's edge. They had to come back and win by at least 14 points in order to advance to play Uruguay for that top seed. And they went to Colorado, and they made a statement very early on. We're here to play.
They beat the brakes off of them guys. They beat the brakes off
of them. And we saw a friend of mine, Hanko Hamasoy, score 3 tries. And he could have had a 4th try, except they called that one back. Another South African product, by the way, Hanko Hamasoy and Ruben de Haas.
Hanko's an interesting character. I met him in Houston when the USA Eagles were playing Scotland and actually beat them. One of the most epic nights of USA rugby I've ever seen in my life. I was absolutely ecstatic at the end of that game. I had the jersey, the shorts, I had the headband. I mean, I was you couldn't tell me I was from anywhere but the USA that night. I was 100% behind our boys. But I had a chance to meet Hanko that evening. And what an interesting guy, because he is South African, but he's lived here so long that like half the time he sounds like he's from Nebraska.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's certain words that'll pop up that it's like, okay, you're obviously South African. But like that guy is another guy that came to this country, and he is absolutely proud to put on that USA jersey. And it makes me smile, because it's like, you know what? If I was I would do the exact same thing. If my daughter played sports, played rugby, and she put on that USA jersey, you're dang right, I'm going to wrap myself in the flag, man. I would be so proud. And that's what I say. Another thing that I love about the United States is that when you come here and you feel welcome, it's the greatest place. And there's no feeling on earth like, I've been all around the world, much like you have. I've heard national anthems in every single country. And, it's great to hear, "Oh, Canada." It's great, and whatnot. But there's just nothing like it whenever you see the USA and their fans and they play the national anthem and we all put our arms around each other's shoulders. And it's like, you know what? Yeah. So, he's a good guy. He had a great game last weekend. I did end up watching it later in the day. still another complaint that like we're playing Rugby World Cup qualifiers outside of the local YMCA. Basically, we're not playing. What is there not an MLS stadium we could use? Was there not like a D2 college stadium we could use somewhere? But that's neither here nor there. I had a really big problem with that up in Newfoundland when St. John's, just because it was embarrassing. The presentation was embarrassing.
Swiler's is a local rugby club, and that's what it was. That's really sad. Decent crowd though showed up at that tiny pitch to watch the game. Yeah. Now, to be fair, the reason they're playing in Glendale is that's Rugby Town. That's the home of USA Rugby. Also, at 5,000 feet, they pick up a bit of advantage against Canada, which is
kick that ball really far,
which is not really something that people think about or mention very often. But to be fair, maybe that now the series against Uruguay, the first game on the 2nd of October, I believe, is going to be in Glendale, Colorado, and the follow-up will be in Uruguay, so that'd be down near sea level. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, no, I'm with you. That's part of the problem. Major League Rugby, a lot of their pitches are artificial turf. I really detest that.
Yes,
I mean, I drove 4 hours and paid $70 in frickin' tolls and bridge crossings to go to Rugby United's first home game a couple years ago when they had it, and they played at MCI Park in Coney Island, which is a baseball field, and it's artificial turf. And at the end of that game, Mike Petrie, Peaches, he looked like he had been skinned by Native Americans and scalped, in the frontier back in the 1700s. His legs were all raspberries and cherries and strawberries.
Rug burn.
Oh, it was horrible. And that's not shouldn't be part of rugby. That's one of the problems with Major League Rugby. They're playing a lot of artificial turf. Hopefully they'll move to proper pitches. We saw that in New Orleans where they took over a minor league baseball park. It's now simply a rugby, the gold mine. They've adjusting it just to play rugby. And then I think with Dallas coming, I'm not sure where they're going to play. But by the way, I have both jerseys, the home and road jersey for Dallas already, because they marked them down by half. I'm kind of a frugal shopper and always buying things.
So am I, man.
Yeah,
so am I.
So I always buy. So those Jackals jerseys are pretty cool.
So the Dallas Jackals are going to be playing in what used to be Globe Life Park. I recently just found out Choctaw Casino has bought the naming rights for that, so it's now Choctaw Park. Right next to the Rangers' new indoor stadium that they got for no reason to finish in last place. I got something totally separate with that. So it is a natural grass field. They've put, I think that's where our USL team is also going to play, and the XFL, when that eventually comes back, if it eventually comes back, will be playing there as well. I've been to Austin Bold Stadium and then their original facility, and then they also used a baseball stadium for a bit there in Round Rock, and then honestly, the best stadium I've been to, at least in this part of the country, and it actually gave me tears going into Aviva in Houston the first time, because it was the first real proper rugby pitch I saw in America. Mm-hmm. And it brought me to tears because it was like, oh my God, we have this here. Like, I don't think people understand around the world. Like, I've done a couple of videos. We have about maybe 4 or 5 parks here in DFW, and none of them are at any means fancy by any means. Mm-hmm. And like going to Aviva, even as small as the seating capacity is, it's absolutely beautiful. And it was a night. Tasman Mako had come over from New Zealand for a tour. I was there with my missus, and it was an absolutely just pristine park and natural grass. That was the big thing, natural grass. Yep. And it looked perfect. A little bit soppy because it is Houston and it's humid all the time there. But it's the hope that, MLR keeps it going. And obviously we saw what happened with the Giltinis this last year, winning the championship. And basically, I'm still kind of curious how they managed to get some of those guys on. And I'm pretty sure
they broke the tactics. Salary rules, and everybody knows it. It's not a secret.
Yeah, like how do you have Gateau and Adam Ashley Cooper
and DTH Van der Merwe too? Not exactly,
Yeah, from Canada. Yeah. Canadian. Which that was kind of like, really, guys? Because I mean, even like Austin has like Kurt Marath, but I know he likes living here. Yeah. Like Kurt Marath, Tongan player. And I met quite a few of the guys for Houston. They've come up and played friendlies against Dallas Reds and all the local clubs here. And, those guys are all DeWitt Ruse. All those guys are all super, super nice. And that's, another reason why my missus loves it, because of the accents, and everybody is super nice. Like, these are guys smashing each other on the field. and then they want to like take a picture holding your kid after the game. You know, you don't really
Yeah,
get
exactly.
that too much here.
No, it's really cool. But I'll tell you, I mean, Houston fans, hold out hope there. Maybe one day they'll actually win a couple of games, the SaberCats. Now that Henneke Meyer's taking over rugby operations for Houston, we'll see. But as I understand it, Henneke will be living in South Africa most of the time, so I'm not sure how that works. Same problem we had with our previous coach from South Africa for the Eagles. Spent all his time in South Africa, only showed up a couple days before the matches over here, and he had a 9-8 record. But it was the first winning record for a USA head coach in history. And now we got Gary Gold with a winning record, but he's got to turn around. So there you have it. We could go on forever, but you've got to get to work, and I've got a stream coming up on the news, Indaba Africa News Today. Once again, Chris Wyatt, thank you for the super chat. Couple things here real quick. Fleshen said that RJ Steyn is in Munster, and he's injured, prepping for the United Rugby Championship season. So that's why we haven't heard from him. And then Boss Deborah says, talking about stadiums, I'm still upset about Newlands being torn down. Yeah, I agree. I'm very angry. It's the oldest stadium in South Africa. It's an iconic stadium, and it's a shame that it's being torn down because the Greenpoint Stadium is not exactly a great place to play rugby. It's a huge stadium. It doesn't really doesn't do justice to the game. But Newlands is iconic. It's sad to see it go. Let's see. And then Ken Anderson says, marvelous cast. What are you two doing in America? Big Springbok fans, I guess. Well, that's where we're at right now, making a living and surviving. But I'm sure both of us will get back to South Africa at first chance we get. It's the 72-hour PCR test that keeps stumbling me. I can't get a test done in time to book a flight to get to South Africa because it just doesn't work. Other people manage it, but I suppose they're probably calling their Nigerian friends to get fake test results, you know. Anyway, Keith, let me thank you so much. We should do this again. Let's do this again.
Oh, definitely, sir. Yes, sir. That would be great, man. I can hopefully plan a little bit more accordingly, and maybe even, you know, I get, because I work for a European company, I get heaps of holiday time, so I can take some time off and we can do this. I'll be taking some time off next week, heading to Birmingham, Alabama for a music festival. You talk about the test. Yeah, I've got to take my shot records with me to even get into this festival, but it should be great. It's going to be 3 days of, you got yours right there in your hand.
I got 40 years of jabs right there.
I've got mine in my rucksack. I keep it around with me just in case anything happens, but I'm not really too worried about it. But yeah. So yeah, we definitely should do this again. It was a great time. I enjoyed this very much so, sir. You're a great. Now I get why everybody wants to come on the shows with you, because you are absolutely a great storyteller, man. I appreciate it.
Well, I had to curtail it because I want to hear your stories. I kept my stories short tonight. But listen, you're welcome back on the channel. And I don't know, let's see, before the All Blacks, we can get together. Maybe we can, do some smoke signals, come up with some prayers to the Almighty or something like that, because we might need it.
Come on.
Maybe we talk about your tats. Looks like you got an interesting story of tats going on there. But I will say this. If that All Blacks jersey makes an appearance, the stream will be abruptly canceled.
No worries, man. It will never happen. It will stay in the back of the closet where it belongs.
Listen, I buy rugby jerseys from all over the world, especially at matches I've been at for all kinds of teams. I got an Ulster jersey already. Now that Dwayne Vermeulen is there, I'm an Ulster fan. Now, I kind of watched him and pulled from him in the past, but now, because I've been there. But now that he's there, I'll be wearing my Ulster jersey with pride. But here's the thing. I've had a chance now to buy an All Blacks jersey several times at 75% off, and I've yet to do it. I just can't bring myself to spend that kind of money. I think my money would be better spent on lottery tickets knowing I'm going to lose.
Well, just to let you know, I didn't buy that All Blacks jersey. It was gifted to me.
Well, see, that's acceptable. I would love to have an All Blacks. I would love to have an All Blacks jersey gifted to me so I could decorate my dartboard with it. It would be wonderful.
Oh man!
And so now I guess everybody knows how I feel about the All Blacks. Now listen. It's out of respect, Kevin. Keith. It's out of respect. They are a premier rugby nation, and they have been brilliant on the pitch. After being in the wilderness for many years, they have just been consistently a top team. And it's easy to hate the guys who always come in first, and that's one of the reasons why I hated them. But I also hate the fact that how about putting some Kiwis on the team and stop pilfering the Pacific Islands, and it'll be better. Anyway. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
I've heard it said, though, as much as people in New Zealand think it's a white European nation. It is a Pacific Island nation, so that's kind of how.
No, it's not. No, that's nonsense. I mean, most of the place names are Maori names. Everything is focused on Maori everywhere you go. It's almost like the Anglo-Saxons are ashamed of being Anglo-Saxon in New Zealand, which is ironic when for years before I went to New Zealand, all I heard was it was a racist nation, historical injustices. And yeah, that's all part of the history there, but that seems to have disappeared long before I arrived on the shores of New Zealand.
Yeah. Hey, man, gotta have whānau everywhere, though, man. Kia ora to all my whānau over in New Zealand.
There you go. All right. Yeah. Well, listen, we got to get you back on, as we said, and thanks a lot. Now, the one question I do have for you, I understand, I think you work for a German firm. I hope it's based in Bavaria because you get extra Catholic holidays off, too.
Würzburg, Bavaria. Yes.
There you go.
We have Würzburg and we have Radibul. So, yeah. And we have an office in Stuttgart as well. So.
That's 21 extra days a year off on top of the American stuff.
Yeah, we don't get those, though, unfortunately, because we are in America. But we do get, I've been there for quite a while, so I do have a nice racking up of holiday pay. So I try to use it as much as I can, man.
Now, that's pretty cool. Any final thoughts as we close up here? Anything you want to share with folks?
Go Box. We better win it this weekend. If not, you're going to have a very upset video on Sunday morning by this guy. we got to, let's pull it together. Everybody, let's get behind our boys. Let's get a victory. Let's get this back, get it back up on the horse because we've got some serious, this is a serious game, but we've got some real serious games coming after this that we need to be 100% for. So that's my final thought. Go Box. Let's win it all, man. So,
there you go. All right, folks. That's Keith Hendon out of Texas, a massive Springboks supporter, rivaling me on this side of the Atlantic for being a Springboks supporter. And I think he's called the Springboks going to win this one, but we really, really need it. Thanks a lot, Keith. We'll get you back here on the program and have a lovely weekend. Be safe out there and do your best to hide that All Blacks jersey. We don't need any bad mojo leading up to the game.
Of course, man. Cheers, bro.
Cheers. All right. Keith, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to put him in the waiting room there. And there you go. Hey, folks, thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with two big Springbok fans. Yeah, Keith in Texas and me up here in central Pennsylvania. Two Americans pulling for the Bucks. What do you know? Well, we're also Eagles fans, as we discovered from that conversation. But I had a lot of fun with that conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And thanks for the super chat there. I appreciate it. And I'll be back in about 18 minutes for Indaba Africa News of the Day on the next stream. Thank you so much. Don't forget today, folks, the membership drive. And see if we can't get anybody to sign up, be a paying member or supporter of Chris Wyatt Africa on our membership drive later today at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. in South Africa, Botswana, and Namibia, as we seek to get more members. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, thanks. Take care, folks. God bless, and have a lovely, lovely day. And we'll see you here in a few minutes for those who will be showing up for the Indaba Africa News of the Day. So thanks a lot, everybody. And by the way, last night I did a special stream called Bridge to Midnight and just talked about the news. It was on last night. Apparently, it's not showing up on my channel. So maybe do a search for Bridge to Midnight. You might be able to find it if you want to watch it. It's about an hour long. Cheers.